Where are all the cash buyers gone to? QVT. I actually say QVT, but I'm showing my age when I say that, am I?
You are a
Dearie
Cassius
me.
now, though, that's it.
Oh dear. It's like, you know what it reminds me? The Kenny Everett television show.
Yeah,
If you ever remember that.
I do
It's like,
remember
you
that.
know, I need to come up with some other phrase. Somebody help me out there. What other phrase can I say then? Roll the credits. Roll the credits. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
okay.
okay.
Let's look at it like
Go
that.
with that.
Fife property market. Where are all the cash buyers? This is what we want to know. The UK property market has undergone a significant shifts since the summer of 2020, driven primarily by post-lockdown race between the summer of 2020 and late 2021, and then a rapid series of interest rate hikes amid at aimed at curbing inflation, actually, in 2022 to 2023. These changes have actually been far-reaching overall implications across the whole of the property market across the country, influencing both prices and transactional volumes. What's your thoughts on this, Kerry? Kerry.
You're not having a good
Oh,
day.
I'm needing to put a different brain in the day. Okay, Perry, what's your thoughts on this?
My thoughts are that I think it's quite unusual. We automatically think that cash buyers are strong, but I think actually it's become evident that while some anticipated trends, the property market was supposed to crash in COVID, of course.
Yeah.
Again, interest rates have affected things, but it didn't fully materialise that cash buyers would be the big thing within that crash, because the crash didn't happen, did it? And in fact, the property market showed remarkable resilience under that pressure. So I think when we come into the article and we start to talk about interest rates, your local markets, areas within Fife that may or not been impacted, be interesting to see how this is going to unfold, Jim.
Well, interest rates actually is something I'm actually going through there now. I'm looking to buy another 9 properties. Well, another 11, including the 2 I've already committed to. But interest rates are a real big thing just now. My numbers work at certain ratios, and interest rates are always a huge implication in whether somebody should buy or even sell at that point in time. It's quite an important thing. I mean, when you look at the initial wave of interest rate hikes, which actually began in November of 2021, as the Bank of England sought to counter rising inflation, a process that continued until summer of 2023, as we said before. Now, over this period, interest rates were raised 14 times.
I know, scary.
That's actually quite surprising. I would never have thought it was 14 times, but we'll have to take their word for it.
And I know for a fact that I was impacted with that. As you know, I downsized in 22 and we were on a fixed deal. And then when our fixed 2-year deal expired, because all the deals were great at that time and we thought they'd gone forever, actually it didn't quite materialize as much. And so you have seen a big impact to people who can, affordability, I guess.
Yeah, definitely affordability. I mean, that accumulated in the peak of 5.25. I mean, now we're down at 5% because we've had a slight reduction. What happens this month is anybody's guess. My predictions for interest rates this month, potentially, I think they'll probably stay the same. So what's my primary drivers? Well, here's the bottom line. We're agreeing, well, we, the royal we, as in the government, are agreeing to salary rises in the public sector of 22% for junior doctors. Now, it's not anything to do with junior doctors at all. It's the fact that you're doing an 11% salary rise when inflation's sitting at 2%. Therefore, what's going to happen with the 9% that we've got extra? We're going to spend it. So if you've got spending going in, it's extra and additional over and above the initial spending it's in already. Then you're obviously going to have an effect on inflation. And then you can see the unions coming along as well, going, well, wait a minute, they got 11%.
What about me?
It's ironic. It's like you've got, I hate to say it, but you've got the train drivers union turning around saying, "Wow, we knew you're getting 11%. Sorry, are you as skilled as the junior doctor?" It's like, why? But you see how that happens. Everybody then goes online in terms of why we not getting more, and this could cause a problem. I mean, the average salary in the UK just now is sitting year on year at about 5.25% increased year on year. If inflation's at 2%, then you're kind of creating a perfect storm to happen in terms of inflation begin to go up again, and then guess what happens? Interest rates ain't going down. Potentially, they might go the other way, and they might end up going up. So the new deal that I'm looking at a 5-year fixed rate deal again for my buy-to-let portfolio, and I'm going to hedge it in there because I'm not convinced that actually interest rates are going to come down as a result of that. So I think everybody should work on the principle that interest rates are going to be where they are, and they're not going to rise, they're not going to come down, and just plan your future on that. But also, I'm a kind of person about, let's planning to weather a storm if it happens. So always kind of live within your means, but well within your means, if that makes sense. So you've got £1,000 coming in. I'm not spending £1,000 a month. I'm maybe spending £750, and I'm keeping, £250 aside just as a wee pot, just in case anything changes, because then I've got a bit of margin there that I could actually accommodate if interest rates go up, and my mortgage rate goes up, if the prices of food go up, if anything else goes up, as a result, if utilities go up, they're predicted to go up 10%.
We're coming into winter as well, so you definitely see the difference there. And I think that's where the Bank of England were coming from when the decision was to kind of implement this policy. I mean, it was quite a rigorous policy they put in place, but it did stem from concerns of rapidly escalating cost of living, didn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Domestically and also globally, and the kind of things that are happening and the economic pressures that are there with those countries.
Well, the significant disruption as well that Russia caused with invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. So I mean, is it a perfect storm? Well, the interest rate tide has really started to turn when we look at it. Or, I'm saying it's really started to turn. I'm hoping it's really started to turn in August of 2024, which has just passed with that rate cut to the 5% in response to the improving inflation figures. But then you've just heard what I've said in there. So this reduction, coupled with the signs of the further cuts that could be on the horizon. See, they're still predicting further cuts on the horizon. The money market's predicting that as well. But I still can't see it. So they're predicting that, and that's why the swap rates between the interbank lending are actually so low, and that allows the banks to lend money on mortgages a lot lower than what base rate is to people. But as soon as that confidence disappears and indicators come out like I'm suggesting just now, and they take wind of that and they think to themselves, well, wait a minute, this is going to be a bit more risky. Therefore, guess what happens? Interbank lending between the banks actually goes up as a result. And therefore, mortgage rates goes up naturally as a result of that as well, but not base rates necessarily. Because we've seen there seems to be a disconnect between base rates just now and mortgage rates for homeowners.
Yeah.
And it's all down to the money markets and interbank lending and how much the banks can actually lend from the money markets themselves at a cheap rate and then pass it on to make that margin. So they have to make that margin every single time. So clearly, as the money markets lend at a higher rate, therefore they have to pass that on, but they still have their margin. Therefore, mortgage rates goes up as a natural result of that.
Yeah.
That's what we've got. That's what we've possibly got on the horizon. But there is a glimmer of hope that the worst of the economic storm may actually be behind us, because inflation seems to be, in inverted commas, under control. So let's look at house prices locally over the last 4 years. How does that look over the last 4 years, Perry?
I think it's quite interesting when you look at property market house prices in Fife alone, because that's what we're kind of concentrating on, and we look at it between 20 and 2024. The average value of a property in Fife in July of 2020 was 135,910.
Wow, that's a 2-bedroom flat in East Neuk.
Exactly.
maybe even a one now.
I know. But today, according to Landridge, that now stands at 176,261, which is a rise of just under 30% on property values.
It's a huge market.
It's
That's
a
a huge
huge
amount
rise
in
in 4
such a
years,
short
isn't
period
it?
of time. But I think it's a natural correction, Because when you look at the average salaries round about the £30,000 point, and you're looking at maybe just round up to 180,000, you're still looking at that multiplier at a 6 times salary for the average house price. And that for me is the benchmark. If you're above that, then obviously the market's a wee bit heated and house prices are heated as well. But if you're below that, there's a correction coming along to get you onto that 6 times multiplier. Because remember, it's an average in there. So you have people above that and you have people below that, depending on what they bought and what their circumstances are. So what else does that mean then for house prices in the Fife area?
Well, I think what's good for Fife is the fact that that shows that prices haven't dropped. So that's a great plus, because we had that hike just after the pandemic, didn't we, where the prices were going through the roof, excuse the pun, but that was happening. And so it's great that that hasn't impacted people and there hasn't been that decline in those prices. So that's great, because that's held for people and in some instances continue to rise. But despite the two predictions that we thought were going to happen, it's great that, and what's interesting is, did cash buyers keep the Fife property market afloat, considering huge increases in interest rates? And that's what I think is going to be interesting when we talk about it.
Yeah, I'm just doing a quick inflation calculation just now to write to today, just to see where the average house price would have been according to inflation figures. So the average price of a house, taking into account inflation, where it really should have been if you took inflation into account, as of today, from 135,910 in 2020, should be £167 274 pence. So that tells me that property prices have still outperformed the inflation market. So therefore, property and real estate still remain one of the best investment asset classes ever. Definitely. Now, let's talk about what you had said about the cash buyers. You know, is it not the game changer we expected? Well, I actually analysed the performance of the different segments of the British property market during this tumultuous period. One of the most surprising factors is the limited role that cash buyers have actually played. Traditionally, cash buyers have perceived as having a significant advantage in the high interest rate environment. Without the need for financing, they're insulated against the direct effects of rising borrowing costs, which should, in real theory, allow them to dominate the market when mortgage rates actually soar. So did the number of cash buyers, this is a question we've got to ask ourselves, the bottom line we've got to come to. So did the number of cash buyers rise when interest rates began to rise in 2022? What have you come up with, Perry?
Well, certainly when we looked at that and we analysed those numbers, the proportion of UK home buyers with cash, it has indeed risen from the late 20% in 2020, 2021 to the early 30% in 23, 24. And I think you can demonstrate that. But has that really significantly increased? Was it an avalanche that they were predicting? I don't think it was, really. Despite the financial advantages, cash buyers did not dramatically alter the dynamics of the market. And we've just shown that, haven't we?
Definitely.
So instead, the pace for the market continued to be set by those who rely on mortgages, which is actually really surprising. Even as the cost of borrowing increased substantially, it didn't seem to impact that. And the trend underscores the critical role that mortgaged buyers play in shaping the market conditions.
Okay. So let's looking locally at Fife then. Let's actually have a wee look at this. Now, cash buyers, residential homes in Fife. Let me just walk you through this when I'm looking at the numbers here. Let's get a graph up. I always like a good graph, a good chart, show you where we are. And then I'll talk you through these numbers. So here we are there. There's the percentage of cash buyers of residential homes in Fife since 2020. That's what we're looking at. So overall, when we look at these numbers, can you see that okay?
Yep.
So locally in Fife, in 2020, 27.57% of home buyers were cash buyers in Fife, whilst 34.9% were cash buyers. So, yeah, okay. That makes sense. So that's the UK compared to the... So the UK was 34.9 and Fife was... No, sorry, UK was 27.57. So we have a larger proportion of cash buyers in Fife. We have about 35% in 2020.
we do.
So
And actually, as you go through the years, you'll see that that's kind of relays through the whole time.
okay, so increase in the UK cash buyers as it goes up to 28% in 2021 versus 33% for Fife. 2022, it was about 28% again versus 34% in Fife again for buyers for cash. 2023 was 33%. Now you can see that it's getting higher and it's getting about. I've got a funny feeling a lot more people were coming to fixed rate mortgages.
Yeah.
So therefore, the cash buyers were starting to come into their own in the UK when people were coming out their mortgages because cash buyers were king after that. And then when you look at the Fife market, that rose to 38%. See how that is? So I have a sneaking suspicion in 2020 to 21 to 22, that was the 2 to 3 year fixed rate deals all coming out in 2022. And therefore, when it hit, a lot of people were actually, they maybe sold or something like that. And then they've got a mortgage rate they've locked into again. But the cash buyers were becoming king at that point in time and they were taking over. So in 2024, the UK, the year to date now, sits at 31% of the UK are cash buyers who buy homes. But we've still got 38% of people are actually cash buyers in Fife.
And I think just for ease of viewing, for those reviewing this just now, when you're looking at the graph, if you're finding it difficult to follow kind of the numbers, the yellow line is the Fife cash buyers and the red line is the UK buyers.
Yeah, I'll try and change that back. That's me messing about with the numbers again. There you go. We're back.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So yellow is Fife and red is basically UK. So you can see where Fife has outperformed the average across the UK.
Definitely. In Fife, as we saw the growth of cash buyers yet again, but it's nothing groundbreaking. So then when we look at it, then just let's take that off the now and then go back to here. So mortgage stress testing and market stability, is there some sort of correlation between this, or were the doom mongers really right?
Well, I don't think they were right. You can see that that's not been the case. Certainly in Fife, it's not been the case. I think that you can understand why perhaps some people had that perception, because when you see interest rates going up and the way the media portray it, it's surrounded by negative press, isn't it? But what it's not doing is analysing actually Fife, the people that are working in Fife, the incomes that they're earning, the affordability of housing here. That's not coming to play when they're doing their headlines on Sky News and other platforms. So I think from there, it does make a big difference to how it's perceived.
We were quite fortunate with stress testing, weren't we? And the fact that they had the foresight to actually put it in place and insist it was done in the 2014, as you'd said. And that's kind of hedged us against any catastrophic effects because of that. And like what you said, economic stability brought us into the spring of 2024. This stability is further evidenced by the relatively low levels of repossessions compared to that. I mean, repossessions have dropped like a stone. See, in the credit crunch, we were doing a huge amount of repossessions, but now there's hardly anything. Now, let me just show you an idea where repossessions were at that point in time. This is actually startling when you see and it's great from the point of view that nobody wants to see somebody getting their house repossessed. But look at how it's dropped right through the UK. I would never have expected this. Here's the graph here. Look at that. I mean, in 2003, repossessions were sitting a run rate at the UK about 6,700. And when it went to the credit crunch and everybody, fell to the ground, basically, it was 20,000, 23,000, 35,000, 32, 23, 25, 19, 15. And then that's when stress testing came in. Look what happened when stress testing came in. Dropped like a stone. Interest rates were obviously dropping as well, so people can afford it. Jobs market was picking up again as well. But you can see today, repossessions, the run rate right now for repossessions in 2024 is 1,623.
Yeah.
That's out the whole of the UK.
That's staggering. That's low numbers.
That is absolutely fantastic. I mean, obviously, nobody wants to see repossessions for one way or another, but 1,623 in year to date out the whole of the UK is quite a remarkable figure. And it's only to be applauded. So these factors, the strong wage growth, for example, and the UK wages actually rising from 31,000 to 35,000. This is at this point where people go, wait a minute, I've not got that. So I think every time I say this average salary for the UK, it's like folk are going, but remember, it takes into account things like people in London
Yeah,
earning, hundreds of thousands sometimes as well, on
exactly.
the other side of the spectrum. So there has to be an average somewhere. But you can see how it's actually quite grown quite significantly from that time. It has risen from 31,000 in 2020 to 35, almost 36,000 today. Now, the lender forbearance has also played a vital role in supporting these borrowers during this challenging period as well. So, because the government turned around and asked them not to actually touch anybody's houses for repossession and give them as much chances as possible, and make sure that that was the last resort ever. So I think a combination of all these policies has made a different thing. And these factors have actually collectively prevented the kind of widespread distress that maybe feared, that maybe many actually feared would occur if rates actually climbed overall. 1.4 million, a significant increase compared to the previous years. However, by 2023, this figure has decreased to around 1 million overall. So, where does that leave us then? Affordability and the shift, buyers' preferences. Are we on the right track here?
Yeah, we are. And I think while house prices have remained robust in most areas, affordability has continued to be a significant concern for some buyers, particularly in more expensive urban markets, as you said, such as London. But I think, as you say, the pandemic induced rates for space, accelerated a trend where financially constrained buyers sought more affordable properties outside major cities. And I think that we've definitely seen that. Even ourselves, we've seen that within the Fife area. We've seen people coming over from Edinburgh, etc., into our areas. And I think that that's shown significant trend there as well. But I think the migration from urban centres to more suburban or rural locations has been a defining characteristic of the property market over the past few years. And it appears to have gained further momentum as rates have risen. So what I was saying there, Jim, is the fact that people have decided that actually we don't need to live in urban, expensive city areas. We can move out within that, and we've even seen this locally in Fife where people have come from Edinburgh. I know London gets referenced a lot here, but actually, you get that in Edinburgh as well, don't you? Where people have come over here because of the affordability of housing. So actually, that does help Fife to a degree. In more expensive locations where the cost of living and property prices are already high,
Yes.
increase in mortgage rates has made buying a home even more challenging for many. But I think as a result, these areas have seen a shift in buyer demographics, as I say, with those less affected with high rates, such as wealthier individuals or those moving from affordable regions into other areas. They're still continuing to purchase.
I still see that. I still see that. I still use the analogy when I found out that a converted 2-bedroom apartment in Glasgow in Merchant City on the banks where they were originally. Well, they converted some of these buildings, the house builders, and into apartments, 1 and 2 bedrooms. And I remember the 2-bedroom. Somebody said to me, it's like, and I says, what sort of price are you paying for that? And I went 450,000. And I went, sorry. It's like you can get a 5-bedroom luxury house in Fife for that. It's like 450 grand. That's crazy. And yet you've got a 2-bedroom apartment in Glasgow. Why are you choosing to stay in Glasgow then? Why do you not just move to a better climate? Let's be honest, the East Coast is a better climate than the West Coast. For obvious reasons. You've got the Atlantic on the West Coast blowing in. The East Coast, you've just got the North Sea, but we're kind of the other way, and the sun comes up on us, and it goes all the way around, and it sets in the west on us as well. So we've got a huge advantage on the East Coast, and the fact that we've got good microclimates on all different regions of Fife as well, overall. So there's a big shift in the buyers' demographics, as you'd actually said, for those less affected by the higher rates, because they can afford it.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're selling a £600,000 house in Glasgow, and they're buying exactly the same house in this area in Fife for around about 350 to 400,000.
Yeah, I think the demographic as well, I think, of actually people's working lives has changed. I know we're talking about their incomes, etc., but actually, after the pandemic, quite a few companies have suddenly then decided, well, actually, we don't need you all to come back to the office. We're quite happy for you to work from home as long as you can Teams or whatever platform they're using to kind of speak with their employees. So actually from there as well, then suddenly actually having a place in Glasgow or having a place in Edinburgh because it was local to where you worked isn't necessarily a stopper for them, and they can go further afield because they can have a home office.
It's become commonplace and accepted practice now, isn't it?
Yeah.
The Home Office is here to stay. I have it right now. A house builder just contacted me the other now, and I says, look, I'm away to Spain on Tuesday night next week. So do you want to do something before then? She went, well, I'm going to struggle to sit down for a coffee. And I went, well, why don't we just do a Zoom? And they went, yeah, we could do Teams. And I went, yeah, that's fine. So we just agreed a time, Teams in, good. You don't need to travel. You don't need to go anywhere. You don't need to get in your car. You don't need to find a parking space. You don't need to have the hassle of getting to the coffee shop, all the rest of it. I mean, there's nothing more greater than you can't really substitute the contact, but Teams and Zoom actually come quite close because you're now getting a name, a face to the name when you're doing that, and you're talking to someone like on this format. That's effectively what you're doing.
It is interactive, isn't it?
So it's now become an accepted practice to do that, and that's allowed anybody anywhere else in the world to actually do anything and work remotely. There's no surprise. I just booked 10 days in Spain in December, and I'll just go to Spain and I'll just do my accounts, the year-end stuff. And it's like, I don't need to physically be here in the UK to do all the year-end accounts for the companies, because I'm an accountant by trade. So it's natural for me just to go out, and why would I not sit in a warmer climate?
But I think
Why
there's
would
a big shift in
why would you need to
mentality.
suffer? Why do you need to suffer? Why do you need to suffer if you could be sitting? It's like the example that you're sitting in the shade, and then all of a sudden you look over there and it's like sunny. It's like, are you just going to continue to sit in the shade then? No, you'll move. So that's why people move house, for that reason. Because lockdowns taught them all that. This is here to stay for a long, long time yet.
Yeah, there's definitely a shift.
So if we look at then sales volumes versus prices, is this a complex relationship?
Well, I think as we evaluate the overall performance of the UK housing market, it's evident that while property prices have remained relatively strong, sales volumes did see a decline in 2023 compared to the surge that we've seen 2021 and 2022. The transactional peaked at approximately 1.4 million properties in the UK.
Yeah.
So that's a significant increase compared to previous years. However, by 23, this figure had decreased to around 1.02. So that's nearly 4 million of a change in a very small window of time.
Interesting. When we go back to pre-credit crunch, though, and this is just because I was looking at the other day in terms of the numbers you saw it as well, didn't you? Remember, I used these graphs and we saw, wait a minute, there was something like there was double the amount of people selling before the credit crunch than there is now. So these transactional volumes are 1.4 million and 1.2 million at 1.02 million. But the reality is, see, before the credit crunch, they were sitting at about 2 million.
Yeah.
And people were selling their house every kind of 6 and 7 years. And then all of a sudden it went out to 10 and 12 years because of that. And I don't know if everybody got more settled, concerned, scared, fearful. It made them stay in their house for a lot longer, or if maybe transactional costs of buying and selling were more prohibitive. And because then when you look at abroad and you look at Europe, if they're paying 6 and 7% on their property sale, they're not going to move every 5 years, are they?
No.
Because they're paying 5 and 6%, and that's a hefty sum. So you tend to find that people in Spain and America and that stay in their houses for a lot longer than what we do, because the house is no longer looked at an opportunity to keep jumping from place to place. It's looked as a home for quite a long time. Admittedly, though, when you get to a point where you're having children and stuff like that, I mean, I've been in this house I'm in now for maybe coming up for 20 years.
It's a long time.
And I would never have thought that before, but when you have kids, 20 years passes like that.
It does. 100% it does.
I've got to admit that, though. That's probably what I was thinking the other now. It's like, when you have kids, actually, 20 years does pass like that.
It does go quick. When you're raising a family, for sure.
It's like, whoa, what happened? So definitely, I mean, when you look at that, despite the rise in interest rates during 2023, its transactional levels were consistent with the long-term trends. I mean, they were averaged around about 1.06 million transactions per year between 2008 to 2019. Now, this stability actually highlights the resilience of the housing market. 2024 projections suggest that transactions may reach the 1.15 million, indicating a stable property market that continues to align closely with historical norms, even amid current economic conditions overall. Now, that's actually really good, because the health, again, I come back to saying, here's what we need to know. The health of the property market is not based on price. It's based on transactional numbers. Because if transactional numbers are low, the demand's still there. Therefore, the price of a property will go up because it's transactional numbers. If transactional numbers are high, in other words, they're not the 1.5 million, the 1.15 million, they end up 1.5 million, you'll likely find that property prices will come down because there'll be more supply in the market and still the same amount of people. Because you can't just magic people out and buyers out of thin air.
No.
It's supply and demand. So, and it takes almost a lifetime for that trend to change overall, or a catastrophic event like the credit crunch. So transactional numbers were a lot higher at that point in time. Markets were a lot more stable, but the boom period started to do, because what happened is salaries had actually gone up, but property prices hadn't gone up to catch up with. And at that point in time, I remember actually somebody doing a workshop I was at, and I was thinking it was Kevin Green, Secret Millionaire. He was actually looking at that and says, look, you actually, when you look at that, Jim, the multiplier, he says, I know straight away that real estate's actually ripe for investment right now, because the multiplier was sitting at something like 5 times the average salary. And he knew it's 1 to 6. And that's where I got that statistics from. And it's always stood strong, because I predicted that back in 2018, 2019, when I was in St. Monin. I was like, wait a minute, the St. Monin's values, property prices are actually quite low in comparison to where they should be. And I actually remember saying it on some sort of vlog or blog. It's like, I could actually see this going up quite high pretty quick in the near future. Pandemic maybe brought that on and just sped it up. So it's all to do with the transactional numbers. Because if you keep the transactional numbers then the same, property prices stay about the same anyway. And they'll only really go up when people get more money in their wage packet, because then they can afford more each month. Because what bought you in 2021 for your average monthly cost for your mortgage in 2021 is now 60% higher for a mortgage in 2024 in terms of mortgage costs. So if you were buying something in 2021, you're paying £800 a month on your mortgage, you would now be paying for that same thing £1,280 a month.
Big jumpy.
For that same mortgage. That's the difference.
It goes right back to what you said earlier on as well about making sure that you manage your income and your outgoings, because that's a massive jump for somebody. That could cause issue.
Because what do you think the first thing you go for if you want to continue to live in your house and your mortgage is going up 60%? I need more money. Your employer then goes, okay, let's see what we can do. But then the employer goes, wait a minute, we're going to have to put prices up. And then if prices go up, inflation goes up. And therefore, what happens is the money you're using that you got when you asked for it then has to go to pay for higher prices. Then you go back to your employer and go, I need more money. See how that spiral could take, just go out of control completely. Hence the reason why the government at the time, actually a couple of years back, says we need to do we need to have some fiscal control here. We need to get inflation under control, because that's the primary driver in the capitalistic system we operate. You can't get away from that.
It's just the way of the world, isn't it?
It's the way the world works. And if you want to change that, you're going to take a long time to change that, because it's not going to change anytime soon. That's
not going to happen in our lifetime.
Very doubtful. So, economic stability, market conditions align closely to historical norms, even amid the economic conditions. What else? What about strong prices and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think the persistence of strong prices, despite lower transactional volumes, suggests a degree of pent-up demand. If Fife buyers perceive that interest rates have stabilised or are beginning to decline, we could see significant increases in transactions activity, which is good for everybody. This potentially recovery is likely to be most pronounced in regions where affordability remains a key factor, which we've just demonstrated earlier on in our conversation that in Fife, affordability is good, and where the desire for more space continues to drive buyers' behaviour. today I was speaking to a lady who moved 2.5 years ago. Suddenly her family's increased, and she's thinking, I wasn't planning to move, but now I have to. I need more space.
I just go back to the day when I had to share a room with my brother. It's like, does anybody do that anymore? It's like,
Or
even we both left the house.
Or even
and that
the
was
day
about 17 or 18 years old.
100%. And that the video you did for Roger Street the other day, with the little sleep rooms in the walls.
The box beds.
The box beds. Mm-hmm.
The box beds, because, predominantly quite a lot of these East Neuk properties, when they had the townhouses, they had the net loft right up the very top, but then, or they had a living accommodation at the top, but everybody stayed on a separate floor. The whole family. It's like you would be sleeping on different arrangements, but they'd have box beds on the wall, and wee tiny box beds. And it wasn't the case you were allowed to put your legs out straight. There wasn't any room for that. You had to go into the box bed, and you had to be curled up when you got into it. And then your cooking was done on the fireplace, which actually had a stove built into the fire itself, and that's where they cooked. So everybody lived in one room, and they're all self-contained. And toilets, there was no such thing.
Oh, now we've got a spa walk-in en suites. It's fantastic.
I know. Hot showers never existed 50 years ago. There was no such thing as a hot shower. And yet we take it all for granted nowadays. So that's the sort of thing, the desire and what we've got now in the standard of living we've got now is completely different to what everybody else had years ago. And it's because of the affordability of all these things, because the mass market and production has actually driven these prices down because economies of scale. And that's how you get that. And the prices come down. I mean, look at washing machines. Washing machines are the same price they were 30 years ago.
I know.
I still don't understand how people manage to manufacture them for that price.
I know. It's like you say, though, they're mass producing it. You've no longer got someone who's in a workshop just building maybe a dozen or 100. They're doing it by thousands and hundreds of thousands now, aren't they?
Yeah. So, well, when you think about the logic of that, it's the same with, it's kind of the same with cars, because you see now that most of the cars are owned, they've consolidated the industry, and VW owns, different brands. They own Skoda, they own Audi, they own Volkswagen themselves. So when you think about the logic of that, they mass produce the body and the chassis in the one place, but all the fittings just make it look a bit different.
Yeah. Exactly.
And then when you look at the other ones like Ford, I think do the same as well. You've got Fiat does the same as well. You've got Citroen does the same as well. Citroen does the same engine they use for Peugeot. And some of the cars, they used to do that. So it's that's mass economies of scale has actually brought prices down. And that's kind of what's happened with property as well, is the mass amount of property has gone up and the quickness have gone up. It's kind of kept it stable, but the transactional numbers always stay the same. So let me ask you this question then, Perry. If we're looking ahead, is there a pivotal moment for the Fife property market?
I think at the moment, the UK property market appears to be at a crucial juncture. It's showing encouraging signs as we move through the latter part of this year, with listings up by 7.2% year to date compared to the pre-pandemic averages, which is great. Gross sales at 22% higher than the same time in 2023. The market is demonstrating resilience, I think. Net sales have also surged with a 28% increase compared to the same period last year, reflecting strong buyer activity, which is activity, transactions, they come hand in hand, don't they? But additionally, the slight 2.6% rise in sale price per square foot from January to July indicates a steady demand for property as well. And these positive, even, get my words out, trends suggest a robust market outlook as we progress through the year.
Yeah. We had looked at that, and when the UK prices, when you look at the data from the land registry, and they're saying that UK prices are actually still quite neutral. But if you look at Scotland individually, they've gone up about 3.6% year on year again. So, and Fife has actually gone up by about that rate as well. So, the great thing is it's still beating inflation. But then the price is just trading like for like. When you look at that as well, it's like all you're doing is trading like for like. Oh, my house has gone up 10%. Yeah, okay. Everybody else's house has gone up 10% as well. So unless you're selling up, moving it around accommodation, or you're downsizing,
Yeah.
that's the only way you're going to get the benefit of that, anything out of that.
Yeah.
So your house is to live in. Remember,
Mm.
it's not really an investment, but it is a kind of savings pot, because as you pay off the mortgage, you put money aside towards the capital, and at some point in time, you'll have a big, massive house. You'll downsize to a smaller house, and you'll probably release a significant amount of that capital overall.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, coupled with the recent rate cut and the better than expected inflation figures, this may actually signal the beginning of a more stable period. If financial markets are correct in predicting further rate cuts by the end of the year, well, we've got a wee bit. Well, you've heard what I said at the beginning. It's like I'm still not convinced. For some reason, I seem to predict the UK economy better than the financial markets can. That's weird. But it's maybe because you just see what's on the ground and you understand. Whereas they're doing macro, bigger picture, I'm doing micro, and this looks like this and this looks like that, and I can see this happening and that happening. So we could see renewed confidence among buyers, leading to more robust recovery in the sales volumes itself as well. Now, the rate cut, if there's going to be a rate cut this month, I still think there'll not be a rate cut. I think it'll stay the same, the vote. So what else have we got to think about then? Essentials to recognise the landscape changed.
I think the experience of the last 4 years has reinforced the importance of affordability. I think that's going to be one of the key drivers. I think the resilience of the stress testing borrowing, I think that's been a fantastic thing. We've seen that in repossessions as well. So actually,
that's probably what's done it.
Yeah, buyer confidence, I think, has made a big difference there. But I think the critical role mortgage buyers in setting the dynamics of the market as well is there. When the intro of this was talking about, is cash king and are the cash buyers out there? But actually, we're seeing a big activity in the mortgage buyers, and I think that is setting the trend and the dynamics of the market at the moment as well. But I think as well, it's really important as estate agents that we understand these shifts and that we can crucially navigate our way through them. And what the market's evolving like, so we can work within it and adapt within it. But also it helps us, to be honest, work better and advise our clients more effectively, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. A Fife owner looking to sell, it's crucial to approach the market with a realistic mindset. That's what my advice would be to a Fife homeowner, definitely. If you're looking to sell, it's crucial to approach the market with a realistic mindset. Now, with only 53% of properties that come to market successfully reaching completed house sale and move, and the odds of selling can feel like a flip of a coin, effectively. That's 12 months from the 23rd of August 2024. Now, of the 420,000 homes that left UK estate agents' books, 798,000 homes exchanged and completed. And actually, this is quite actually surprising, in the UK, 710,000 homes withdrew unsold. Who puts their house on the market and then takes it off?
I have no idea.
I have a sneaking suspicion, because we're in Scotland, it's a bit different for us. I think the English market seems to be like, well, we'll suck it and see see what happens. Whereas the Scottish market is like, no, I'll be definitely selling my house, and there's no doubt about that. And it's going to be come hell or high water if I actually withdraw it from the market for extenuating circumstances, because that's my evidence and that's what I see. But the UK statistics actually show that probably a lot of people down in England actually just put it on to see how they get on.
And also, I think the way the buyer market is there as well, there's not that security that we have here in Scotland with missives, etc. So I think that does impact things slightly as well.
That then makes me think, though, when you do that, and you're like, the intention is actually about 50%, if you're including England, actually withdraw from the market and then actually stay where they are. It's like, what's the mindset about moving then? Why would you want to move just for the sake of it?
I know, absolutely. And I think that's what you were saying there, what we were talking about earlier on about the realistic way of navigating our clients around it and them understanding what it is that they're doing and why they're doing it, to give them that confidence that actually the decisions they're making are the right ones.
That's why it's vital to stay on the right side of the coin. And it's vital to set a competitive price, to present your property in the best possible light that can actually significantly increase your chances of securing a sale and achieving your goals overall. So in Fife and similar towns and cities where affordability and the search for the space are particularly relevant, The insights gained from this period of upheaval will be invaluable, but staying attuned to these trends, anticipating the needs of our Fife clients, well, we can offer informed guidance in a time of change.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just wrap up here. What's the conclusion to all this then? What's the bottom line?
I think the bottom line is that whilst the 4 years have been challenging for the Fife and UK property markets, it also has demonstrated its underlying strength and adaptability. And I think that we are potentially entering a more stable period. And I think that gives us good case for optimism, and cautious optimism, I admit, because we're not quite sure what is going to happen with interest rates, but I think the optimism is there.
It's funny, but I'm very optimistic, and a lot of people see me as being optimistic about the market and the property market. But as an accountant, I'm quite prudent in terms of how I look at things. And is there a correlation between the both of them? How could you be optimistic and actually be prudent at the same time? Because it seems like it clashes, but for some reason it works. I don't know why. So I'm quite optimistic about the situation, but maybe my suggestion is I always play the downside. So when I go out to see someone, I talk about actually what's important to them, but the optimism that surrounds that overall, I would say, definitely in that context. So that's where I think everything is, and where we are right now in terms of the property market. Understanding the factors that shape the recent performance, and we can better navigate the road ahead and continue to support our clients and whatever challenges may hold for the future. If you were to do a sentence about, what this tells us, Perry, overall, what would be that sentence before we finish?
I think for me, it's the stability is there. It's understanding your personal journey. It's understanding your own affordability. And it's also about getting some good guidance and advice, so that you know that the moment that you're in, everybody moves for a reason. So it's about understanding what that reason is, and does that reason have to be now or 3 months or 6 months? It's really just understanding the journey you are on personally and adapting with all the facts that are there.
Definitely. Thanks for these wise words of wisdom. If anybody needs more information, and please feel free to reach out, stick something in the comments, or you can message us direct on this post. Until next time, guys, we'll see you on the Saturday morning show at 9:30. Bye-bye for now.
Take care.